Ambassador Day stood before the council chamber and felt nothing. 20 years ago, when he first walked through these massive doors, he had felt wonder. The chamber was beautiful, with floating lights and walls that seemed to stretch into infinity. Representatives from 100 worlds sat in their designated spaces, their bodies strange and their voices stranger. Back then, Day had believed humanity was joining something important. Now he just felt tired. The vote on Security Directorate membership is concluded, Prime Archon Velthoris announced. His voice echoed through translation devices in every language. The Vrelian Compact has been selected. 27 votes in favor, 15 opposed. Day had expected this. Still, hearing it made something cold settle in his chest. Behind him, Councillor Hay shifted in her seat. She said nothing, but he could feel her anger like heat. The Vrelian representative stood and bowed. They had done nothing to earn this honor. No rescue missions, no medical breakthroughs, no desperate flights into danger zones to save dying colonies. They had simply existed and demanded respect. Humanity had done everything. For 20 years, humans had served the Council faithfully. When a plague struck the Thessian worlds, human doctors had worked until they collapsed. When the borderland colonies faced starvation, human ships had flown through pirate-controlled space with supplies. When species went to war, human diplomats had stood between them and found peace, and still the Council saw them as lesser. Ambassador Day, Velthoris said, his tone bored. Do you wish to address the Council? Every eye turned to him. Some held pity, most held nothing at all. They were already thinking about their next meeting, their next meal, their next small concern. They had forgotten that humans had saved 3 species from extinction in the past 5 years alone. Day opened his mouth to speak. The prepared statement was in his notes. Words about disappointment, about humanity's contributions, about hoping for better recognition in the future. Words that meant nothing. He closed his mouth. No, he said simply. I have nothing to say. Velthoris looked surprised. Nothing? This is your opportunity to... I have nothing to say, Day repeated. His voice was calm and quiet. Thank you for your time. He turned and walked out. Hay followed immediately, her footsteps quick and sharp behind him. The massive doors closed, cutting off the confused murmur from the chamber. In the hallway, Hay grabbed his arm. Day, what are you doing? What should have been done years ago, he replied. He kept walking toward the human delegation office. His mind was already moving through lists, plans, calculations. 20 years of experience across council space. 20 years of building relationships, learning systems, understanding how everything worked. 20 years of being taken for granted. Inside the office, the rest of the human delegation waited. Young diplomat Saul sat at the communications desk. Engineer Tay was reviewing infrastructure reports. Medical coordinator Bo stood by the window looking out at the council city below. They all looked up when Dee entered. We're leaving, Day said. The room went silent. Not just this building, he continued. Not just this planet, all of it. Every human in council space. We're done. Bo stepped forward, her face concerned. Day, that's thousands of people. Doctors, engineers, teachers, merchants. They have lives here, families, and they deserve better than this, Day interrupted. His voice was still calm, but now there was steel beneath it. Send the message. Polite, professional, nothing dramatic. All humans are to conclude their contracts and return to human space within 6 months. Anyone who wants to stay may stay, but Earth will no longer support council operations in any capacity. They'll panic, Tay said quietly. Half their infrastructure runs on our modifications. I know, Day replied. The hospital will fall apart without our protocols, Bo added. People will die. I know, Day said again. And they should have thought of that before treating us like servants. Hay moved to the communication console. Her fingers danced across the controls, crafting the message that would change everything. Should we explain why? She asked. Day thought about that. He thought about every dismissive comment, every ignored proposal, every time a human had saved lives and received nothing but contempt in return. He thought about species that took humanity's gifts and called them tribute. No, he finally said. No explanations, no accusations, no anger. We simply thank them for the opportunity to serve and inform them we are pursuing our own path now. Keep it brief. Keep it polite. They won't understand, Sewell whispered. They will, Day said. Eventually, when the power grids start failing, when their ships break down, When plagues spread and no one knows how to stop them, when the peace we maintained falls apart, they'll understand that we weren't weak. We were kind. And there's a difference. He looked around at his team, these people who had worked so hard for so little recognition. Send the message, then go home. All of you. And tell our people. Tell them they can hold their heads high. We gave the council everything and we owe them nothing more. The message went out that night. Simple, professional, and final. Across the galaxy, humans read it and began to pack their belongings. No protests. No arguments. Just quiet preparation for departure. In the council chamber, Velthoris read the notification and dismissed it. Humans always complained, but they always came back. They needed the council more than the council needed them. He was wrong. Dr. Bow submitted her resignation on a Tuesday morning. The hospital administrator barely looked up from his datapad when she placed the notice on his desk. 3 weeks' notice? He said, his tentacles waving dismissively. That's hardly sufficient for someone of your position. It's what my contract requires, Bow replied calmly. I've trained the staff on all current protocols. The documentation is complete. You can't just leave. You're the head of emergency medicine. Bow smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Watch me. She walked out of his office and didn't look back. Behind her, the administrator was already calling someone, his voice rising with the first hints of panic. Bow had run the emergency department for 8 years. She had reduced mortality rates by 40%. She had developed the triage system that every council hospital now used. And not once had anyone said thank you. 3 weeks later, she boarded a human transport ship. 50 other human medical staff boarded with her. The hospital had tried everything to make them stay, offers of higher pay, better positions, public recognition, but the humans just smiled politely and kept packing. On the construction platform above Arcturus Station, Engineer Sung was having the same conversation with his supervisor. The defense platform is only 60% complete, the supervisor buzzed. His insect-like body vibrated with agitation. You can't abandon the project now. Sung carefully packed his welding tools. I'm not abandoning anything. My contract expires in 2 weeks. I'm simply not renewing. But you're the lead structural engineer. Your team does work that we can't. The supervisor stopped, realizing what he was admitting. Can't replicate? Sung finished. Yes, I know. Perhaps you should have considered that before rejecting my proposal for proper safety equipment, before ignoring my warnings about worker fatigue, before treating my team like they were replaceable. Sung, please, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, Sung replied. He closed his toolbox with a decisive click. I'm just no longer willing to be invisible. His entire team, 37 human engineers, left with him. The defense platform stood unfinished, its exposed framework vulnerable to solar winds. The alien contractors quickly discovered that nothing they tried could match the structural integrity Sung's team had achieved. His primitive welding techniques were apparently not so primitive after all. Trader Na closed her commercial exchange on Meridian Prime without ceremony. She simply posted a notice on the door. Closing permanently. All contracts fulfilled. Thank you for your business. Within hours, merchants across the district were panicking. Human-made goods had been everywhere, cheap, reliable, and high quality. No one had thought about where they came from or who made them. They were just always there. Now they weren't. The tool shop next to Na's exchange sold cutting instruments. Half their inventory was human-made. The owner came running over, his scales flushed with distress. Nah, you can't close. Where will I get supplies? Na was loading the last boxes onto her transport sled. From someone else. I'm sure you'll manage. But your prices were fair. Your quality was excellent. Everyone buys human tools. They do, Na agreed. And yet when the Merchant Guild voted on expansion rights last year, humans were excluded. We were told our businesses were too small scale to matter. She smiled. Perhaps we were wrong to think we mattered at all. The tool merchant watched helplessly as Na's transport lifted away. Within a month, 70 human commercial operations across the system had closed. The goods everyone had taken for granted became expensive luxuries from other species who charged triple and delivered half the quality. The pattern repeated across council space. Humans disappeared from their posts quietly, professionally, without drama. They didn't make speeches or demand apologies. They simply left. Captain Jin filed his final flight plan on a Thursday. For 6 years, he had run humanitarian missions to the frontier zones, places too dangerous or too poor for council ships to bother with. His ship, the Steady Hand, had delivered food, medicine, and supplies to colonies that would have died without him. The council logistics coordinator barely acknowledged his departure notice. "Another one," she muttered, stamping the document. "Fine, leave. We'll find someone else." Jin almost laughed. "No, you won't. No one else will fly those routes for what you pay. No one else will take the risks. You'll send your official relief ships, and they'll arrive weeks late, because they follow every regulation, and people will starve while you do everything by the book. That's not our problem," the coordinator said coldly. "No," Jin agreed. "Not anymore." On the integrated colony of Pax Station, young Ray finished her last mediation session. For 3 years, she had been the bridge between a dozen different species living together. Every dispute, every misunderstanding, every cultural conflict had come across her desk. She had learned all their languages, understood all their customs, and somehow made it work. The colony administrator didn't understand why she was leaving. "You're good at this," he said, genuinely confused. "Why would you give up such important work?" Ray looked at him for a long moment. "Because I've spent 3 years preventing conflicts, and you spent 3 years taking credit for the peace. Because every report you filed said, the colony is stable, without mentioning who made it stable. Because you told the council I was your assistant when I'm the one doing the actual work. But that's just politics. You understand?" "I understand perfectly," Ray said. "That's why I'm leaving." 2 months after she departed, Pax Station had its first serious riot. 6 months later, 3 species had stopped speaking to each other entirely. The model integration colony became a case study in failure. Across the galaxy, the pattern was the same. Humans left and small problems appeared. Power grids became unreliable, ships broke down more often, medical procedures took longer, peace agreements fell apart. Nothing catastrophic at first, just little problems. Problems that grew bigger every day. In the council chambers, Prime Archon Velthoris read the reports with growing irritation. Hundreds of humans had left council space. He sent a message to Earth's government, requesting they order their citizens to return. The reply was brief. "Our citizens are free to work where they choose. They have chosen to come home." Velthoris dismissed it. Humans always came back. They needed council trade, council technology, council protection. They would return when they needed something. But weeks passed, and the humans didn't come back. The small problems became bigger problems. And slowly, very slowly, the council began to realize that something had changed. They just didn't understand what yet. The plague started small on Thessian I-4. Just a few cases at first, barely worth noting in the daily health reports. The early warning system that Dr. Bow had installed should have caught it immediately. The system monitored thousands of data points: hospital admissions, pharmacy purchases, school absences, water quality readings. But no one had maintained the system after Bow left. The alien doctors didn't understand how all the pieces connected. They saw it as just another monitoring program, not the carefully designed network that predicted outbreaks before they spread. By the time someone noticed the pattern, 3,000 people were sick. By the time the council mobilized a response, 12,000 were dead. The hospital administrator, who had dismissed Bow's resignation, now stood in a makeshift morgue, surrounded by bodies. He finally understood what he had lost, but understanding came too late. The council's military was having its own problems. Admiral Kresh studied the tactical display with growing frustration. 3 pirate ships were harassing trade routes near the outer markers. Small ships, poorly armed, the kind of threat that should have been easy to handle. But his fleet had lost 3 ships trying to catch them. "They know our patrol patterns," his tactical officer reported. "They know exactly when we'll be where." Kresh remembered the human tactical advisors who used to work in this very room. Captain Jin had been one of them, a quiet man who seemed to predict enemy movements like magic. He would study pirate behavior, trade patterns, fuel consumption rates, and somehow know exactly where they would strike next. The human tactical team had kept these trade routes safe for years. The pirates had been a minor nuisance easily intercepted before they could attack. Now those same pirates were wreaking havoc and Kresh couldn't figure out how to stop them. "Change the patrol schedules," he ordered. They changed the schedules. The pirates adapted. 3 more ships lost. Kresh finally sent a message to Earth, requesting Jin's assistance as a consultant. The reply was polite and unhelpful. "Captain Jin is retired from Council operations. We wish you success in resolving your security concerns." On the frontier colonies, people were dying of hunger. The Council had sent relief ships just as they promised. Official vessels with proper documentation, following every safety protocol and regulation. The ships arrived 6 weeks late. When Captain Jin had run these routes, he had cut through bureaucratic nonsense. Medical supplies? He marked them as urgent cargo and flew fast routes. Food shipments? He loaded until his ship groaned and ignored the official weight limits. Damaged landing zones? He set down anyway and unloaded by hand if necessary. The Council pilots followed the rules. They waited for proper authorization. They adhered to weight restrictions. They refused to land on damaged pads. Half their cargo spoiled waiting for the right permits. Colony Governor Tam watched the official relief ship depart from New Haven Station, its cargo bay still half full because regulations prohibited leaving unsafe amounts of supplies. His people were starving, and the ship was leaving with food aboard because the paperwork wasn't correct. "Where are the humans?" he asked his aide, already knowing the answer. "Gone," the aide replied quietly. "All of them." On Pax Station, what had been the Council's showcase of integration was falling apart. Without Ray to mediate disputes, old tensions resurfaced. The Corellian population claimed the water district belonged to them historically. The Thessians said the Corellians were lying. Both groups armed themselves. The new mediator, a Vrelian official, tried to apply standard conflict resolution procedures. He scheduled formal hearings. He reviewed historical documents. He created committees to study the issue. While he was scheduling meetings, the Corellians and Thessians were building barricades. Ray had prevented conflicts by knowing people, not procedures. She had spent her evenings in both communities, drinking their beverages and learning their stories. She had understood that the water district wasn't about water. It was about respect and fear and old wounds that needed healing, not litigation. The Vrelian mediator understood none of this. When the riot started, he was still drafting his first report. Across Council space, systems that had worked perfectly for years were breaking down. Not because aliens were incompetent, but because humans had been the invisible glue holding everything together. Engineer Tay had modified power grids on 70 worlds. Just small improvements, he had said. Little tweaks to improve efficiency. No one had noticed when power was cheap and reliable. Everyone noticed now when the grids became unstable, and energy costs jumped 40%. The Council hired alien engineers to fix the problems. The engineers studied Tay's modifications and couldn't understand them. The systems weren't broken. They were just performing at normal efficiency instead of the enhanced efficiency Tay had achieved. Normal wasn't enough anymore. Diplomat Sol had maintained peace between 5 neighboring species for 7 years. She hadn't done it through formal treaties or official negotiations. She had done it by knowing when to share a meal, when to deliver a private message, when to arrange an accidental meeting between leaders who publicly claimed to hate each other. Without her gentle guidance, ancient hostilities reignited. Border disputes became military buildups. Trade disagreements became embargoes. 3 small wars broke out within 6 months. The Council's professional diplomats tried to intervene. They scheduled peace conferences and drafted treaties. But they were trying to fix problems they didn't understand, using tools that had never worked in the first place. Sol hadn't maintained peace through documents. She had maintained it through relationships. In the Council's research centers, scientific progress had ground to a halt. Researcher Han had been sharing human experimental methods for a decade. He had shown alien scientists how to approach problems from different angles, how to test theories more efficiently, how to collaborate across disciplines. His methods had accelerated council research by 40%. No one had realized it because the improvements were gradual and seemed natural. Now progress had slowed to its old pace, and scientists couldn't figure out why their breakthrough projects were taking twice as long. Prime Archon Velthoris read the accumulating reports with growing alarm. Economic indices were falling. Response times to crises had tripled. Member species were complaining about declining services. Medical systems were strained. Trade routes were unsafe. Colonies were suffering, and all of it had started when the humans left. He sent another message to Earth, this time more urgent. The reply was identical to the first, polite, brief, unhelpful. "They're doing this deliberately," his chief advisor said. "They're trying to prove they're necessary." Velthoris wanted to believe that. It would mean humans cared enough about the council to play political games, but he remembered Ambassador Day's face during that final meeting. There had been no anger there, no desire for revenge, just nothing. Like Day had already left in his mind before his body departed the chamber. "Send a formal delegation to Earth," Velthoris ordered. "Offer them concessions. Better trade terms. A seat on the Economic Council. Whatever they want." The delegation departed 2 weeks later. They carried offers of partnership, respect, and recognition. Everything the Council should have offered years ago. They never got past Earth's orbital defense stations. A human coordinator named Wu met them there, perfectly polite and completely unmovable. "I'm sorry," Wu said, though he didn't sound sorry at all. "Earth is not currently accepting formal delegations from the Council. We wish you safe travels home." The delegation returned empty-handed, and the cracks in Council space grew wider. Defense Coordinator Wu watched the Council delegation's ships disappear into the void. Behind him, the orbital defense station hummed with quiet efficiency. Human crews moved through their duties with practiced ease. Everything was clean, orderly, and completely under control. "They'll be back," his second-in-command said. "Yes," Wu agreed, "and we'll turn them away again." He had been a junior officer when humanity first joined the Council, full of hope and excitement. Now he was older, wiser, and done with being disappointed. The defense coordinator position had once been a punishment assignment, watching Earth's borders while everyone else got to serve in Council space, earning glory and recognition. Now it was the most important job humanity had. He was the shield that kept the Council away. Another ship appeared on the sensors 3 days later. This one carried Prime Archon Velthoris himself, who almost admired the dedication. Almost. "Ambassador Day will meet you," Wu informed the Prime Archon through communications. "On our station." "Not on Earth," Velthoris agreed. He had no choice. The meeting took place in a bare conference room. Day sat across from Velthoris with Counselor Hay at his side. No other humans attended. They didn't need witnesses for what was about to be said. 20 years, Velthoris began. 20 years of partnership, and you throw it away over one vote. "Is that what you think this is about?" Hay asked. Her voice was soft but cold. "One vote? You were upset about the Security Directorate decision. I understand. But you understand nothing," Day interrupted. "The vote was just the final insult. Do you know how many proposals we submitted over 20 years? 347. Do you know how many were accepted? 12. The ones you accepted were the ones where we did all the work and you took all the credit." Velthoris shifted uncomfortably. The council process requires humans to be grateful for scraps," Hay said. "We saved the Thessians from extinction. We rebuilt the Corellian infrastructure. We mediated peace between species that had been at war for centuries. And what did we get? Condescension, dismissal, the assumption that our contributions were tribute rather than gifts. If you had concerns, you should have raised them through proper channels," Velthoris said. Day actually laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. "We did every year, every month, every time we were ignored or dismissed or patted on the head like children. We documented everything, Velthoris. Every slight, every dismissal, every time a human saved lives and received nothing but contempt in return." "So this is revenge?" Velthoris asked. "No," Dee replied. "Revenge would require us to care about hurting you. We don't, we simply stopped letting you hurt us." Velthoris pulled out a data pad. "I have authorization to offer you anything. Full voting rights on all council bodies, trade preferences, technology sharing agreements. Formal recognition of human contributions. Name your price. You can't afford our price, Hay said quietly. Try me. Respect, Hay said. Genuine respect. The kind that comes before we save your lives, not after. The kind that treats human lives as equally valuable as alien lives. The kind that doesn't assume human kindness is weakness or human cooperation is subservience. You have that now, Velthoris insisted. These new offers prove you're desperate, Day interrupted. You don't respect us. You need us. There's a difference. The room fell silent. Outside the viewport, Earth hung in space, blue and green and completely independent. Humanity had built a life without the Council. They had alliances, trade networks, scientific exchanges, all with species that treated them as equals. Velthoris looked at the planet and felt something like fear. Your people are suffering too. The humans who formed relationships in Council space. They had friends, families, lives. You're asking them to abandon all of that. We're asking them to remember their dignity, Hai replied. Many humans have stayed in Council space. We didn't force anyone to leave, but those who remain do so as individuals, not as representatives of humanity. Earth will no longer send missions, provide aid, or participate in Council operations. People are dying because of your withdrawal, Velthoris said, trying a different approach. The plague on Thessian IV, the starvation in the frontier colonies, the wars breaking out across the border zones. Human help could stop all of that, yes, Day agreed. It could, just as it did for 20 years while you took it for granted. So you'll let people die to make a point? Day's expression hardened. We let people die? Counselor, we saved billions of lives over 2 decades. We gave everything we had. And you treated it as worthless. Now you're angry that the worthless thing you threw away was actually priceless. That's not our failure. It's yours. Hay pulled up her own datapad. We tracked Council efficiency before and after human withdrawal. Medical response times increased by 300%. Infrastructure reliability decreased by 40%. Scientific progress slowed by half. Trade route security collapsed. Peace initiatives failed at twice the previous rate. We were successful because humans made us successful, she continued. And you never noticed because you never bothered to look. You assumed the Council was great and humans were lucky to serve it. You had it backwards. Velthoris stood abruptly. This is unacceptable. The Council will impose sanctions, trade embargoes, diplomatic isolation. You'll regret this decision. Wu's voice came through the intercom. Prime Archon, your ship is ready for departure. We've uploaded new navigation data showing safe routes away from human space. It was a dismissal, polite but absolute. Velthoris turned to Day one final time. You were my friend once. We drank together after you saved my homeworld from that asteroid. You told me humanity wanted to build something beautiful with the Council. Was that a lie? No, Day said quietly. We did want that. We tried for 20 years to build it. But you can't build something beautiful with people who see you as inferior. So we stopped trying. After Velthoris left, Hay and Day sat in silence for a long moment. Through the viewport, Council ships gathered in the distance, hesitating at the edge of human space. Do you think they'll learn? Hay asked. Some will, Day replied. The ones who already treated us well. The ones who were our real friends, not just people who used us. Those species are already reaching out, asking to maintain relationships outside the Council structure. And the others? Day smiled grimly. The others will continue failing until they either learn or collapse. Either way, it's not our problem anymore. On Earth below, Counselor Hay's real work was beginning. She had spent 20 years building networks across Council space, identifying which species treated humans with genuine respect and which saw them as tools. Now those networks were becoming something new, a quiet alliance of equals, growing in the spaces the Council ignored. Humanity wasn't withdrawing from the galaxy. They were simply withdrawing from the Council. And they were taking their real friends with them. The Council could have been part of that. They chose differently. Now they would live with their choice. The power went out on Station Meridian at exactly 14:32 local time. Not completely. Life support stayed online and emergency lighting flickered to life. But everything else stopped. Commerce terminals, communications arrays, transportation systems, climate control. The chief engineer stared at the diagnostic panels in confusion. Nothing was broken. All the systems checked out as functional. They just weren't working at optimal levels anymore. Run the full diagnostic again, she ordered. The diagnostic came back the same. Everything functional. Everything inadequate. What the chief engineer didn't know was that Engineer Tay had modified this station 7 years ago. Small changes, he had said. Just improving efficiency. He had rewired the power distribution network to reduce waste by 30%, allowing the station to handle triple its original population without building new generators. Nobody had documented those changes. Nobody had thought they mattered. It was just Tay being helpful, doing extra work that nobody asked for. Now the station had triple the original population, and the power grid was running at its original inadequate capacity. Rolling blackouts became routine. Businesses closed because they couldn't maintain inventory. Residents started leaving for stations with reliable power. The pattern repeated across 70 council stations and planets. Systems that had worked perfectly for years were suddenly failing, and nobody could figure out why. Alien engineers examined every component, replaced parts, upgraded systems. Nothing helped because the problem wasn't broken equipment. The problem was the absence of improvements nobody knew existed. On the border between Corellian and Vrelian space, war broke out on a Tuesday. The conflict had been brewing for months ever since diplomat Saul left. She had maintained an impossible peace for 7 years through nothing but conversations and carefully arranged meetings. The new council diplomat assigned to the region was experienced and qualified. He knew all the proper protocols, had studied both cultures, and followed every guideline in the diplomatic handbook. He didn't know that the Corellian Prime Minister's daughter was married to a Vrelian merchant. He didn't know that the Vrelian military commander's son was studying at a Corellian university. He didn't know about the secret trade agreements, the personal friendships, the 1,000 small connections that Sul had nurtured and maintained. Sul had built a web of relationships so complex that war became unthinkable. Everyone had too much to lose. When she left, she took the map of that web with her. Without it, the new diplomat saw only official positions and historical grievances. When fighting started, it spread fast. The council military, already struggling with pirate problems, now had to manage 3 separate conflicts. Ships that should have been protecting trade routes were pulled to border patrol. Resources stretched thin. Casualties mounted. Admiral Kresh found himself commanding forces across multiple war zones and failing at all of them. He remembered Captain Jin's tactical brilliance with bitter regret. Jin had understood warfare not as pure strategy, but as human behavior on a massive scale. He predicted enemy movements by understanding fear, pride, and desperation. Kresh only understood tactics. Against an enemy who followed predictable patterns, he was adequate. Against an enemy who fought with passion and chaos, he was lost. In the Council's research centers, scientists were discovering their own problems. The breakthrough projects that had seemed so promising were stalling. Experiments that should have taken months were taking years. Nobody could understand why. Researcher Han had left 16 months ago. Before departing, he had sent one final message to his colleagues. "Thank you for letting me contribute to your wonderful work." None of them understood it was goodbye. They had thought Han was just being polite. They didn't realize he had been the reason their wonderful work was wonderful. Han had taught them how to design experiments more efficiently, how to approach problems from multiple angles, how to collaborate across disciplines. His methods had seemed so simple and obvious that everyone assumed they had always worked that way. Now experiments failed for reasons nobody could identify. Projects ran over budget. Papers got rejected for methodological problems. The scientists checked their work carefully and found nothing wrong, except that everything took twice as long and produced half the results. "Where is Han?" A young researcher finally asked her supervisor. "Earth, I think." "Why?" "Because everything was easier when he was here." The supervisor dismissed the comment. One human couldn't make that much difference. But the researcher was right, and deep down the supervisor knew it. Economic reports showed the council was in decline. Trade volumes decreasing, innovation slowing, infrastructure deteriorating. Member species were starting to question their council membership fees. If the council couldn't provide services, why pay for them? The Vrelian Compact, which had taken humanity's security directorate seat, was proving utterly incompetent. They had never done the hard work that humans did daily. They had lobbied for positions and made speeches, but when actual problems needed solving, they had no idea where to start. Their first major decision was to increase military spending by 40%. It didn't help. The problems weren't about funding, they were about competence, strategy, and understanding. All things that couldn't be bought. Prime Archon Velthoris faced a council in chaos. Member species were openly arguing. Trade partners were abandoning agreements. Border regions were unstable. And every report, every complaint, every failure pointed back to the same problem. The humans were gone. Offer them full membership on the Security Directorate. One counselor suggested. Give them what they wanted. They don't want it anymore, Velthoris replied tiredly. They've moved on. Then offer them more. Technology sharing. Territory. Anything. You still don't understand, Velthoris said. They don't want things from us. They wanted respect. They wanted to be seen as equals. And we waited until we were desperate to offer it. Now our offers mean nothing. He pulled up reports from the intelligence services. Humanity wasn't struggling. They had formed new alliances with species the Council had overlooked. Smaller civilizations, frontier colonies, worlds that remembered human kindness. Together they were building something new. A network of equals sharing resources and knowledge freely. No hierarchy, no dominant species, just cooperation based on mutual respect. It was working. Trade was flowing. Science was advancing. Problems were being solved through collaboration rather than bureaucracy. Everything the Council was supposed to be, this new alliance actually was. And humanity was at its heart, not through force or manipulation, but because everyone remembered what humans had done for them when nobody else cared. We could have been part of that, Velthoris said quietly. They would have built it within our structure if we had just treated them fairly. His chief advisor shifted uncomfortably. It's not too late. We could approach them again, offer— It is too late, Velthoris interrupted. We had 20 years to do the right thing. We chose wrong every time. Now we pay the price. Around the Council, member species were starting to leave. Small species at first, ones that had little political power. They looked at the declining services and rising costs and decided the Council wasn't worth it anymore. Some joined humanity's growing alliance. Others went independent. Either way, the Council was shrinking. Velthoris watched it happen and understood with bitter clarity. They hadn't just lost human workers. They had lost the people who made everything else possible. The problem solvers, the bridge builders, the ones who did unglamorous work without demanding recognition. Humans had been the Council's foundation, and nobody had noticed until the foundation was gone. Now the structure was collapsing, one piece at a time, and there was nothing Velthoris could do to stop it. The vote of no confidence came on a cold morning in the Council chamber. Prime Archon Velthoris watched the votes tally with a strange sense of relief. 43 in favor of removing him. 22 opposed. 15 abstentions. He had failed, and now it was official. Do you wish to address the Council before you depart? The interim speaker asked. Velthoris stood slowly. His joints ached. He had aged years in the past 18 months. Around him, representatives from 60 remaining worlds watched with varying degrees of pity, anger, or indifference. 40 other member species had already left the Council. The empty seats were a physical reminder of his failure. I want to tell you a story, Velthoris began. 23 years ago, my homeworld was dying. An asteroid was coming, and we had no way to stop it. We sent out desperate calls for help to everyone we knew. Most species said it was too expensive, too dangerous, too complicated. But humans came. He paused, remembering. They came with old ships and improvised equipment. They worked for 3 weeks straight, barely sleeping, to deflect that asteroid. 73 humans died in the effort. They saved 3 billion of my people. And when it was over, they asked for nothing. They just smiled and said they were glad to help. The chamber was silent. I thanked them personally. I told Ambassador Day that my people would never forget what humanity did for us. And then over the next 20 years, I forgot. Not the event, I remembered the asteroid. But I forgot what it meant. I forgot that humans had risked everything for strangers. I forgot that their kindness was a choice, not an obligation. Velthoris looked around the chamber. We all forgot. Humans saved the Thessians from plague, built infrastructure for the Corellians, mediated peace between enemies, fed starving colonies, maintained our power grids, our hospitals, our peace, and we treated it as tribute, as if they owed us their service, as if their contributions were the bare minimum rather than extraordinary gifts. The humans didn't withdraw because they were weak, he continued, his voice growing stronger. They withdrew because we failed them. Every dismissive comment, every ignored proposal, every time we took credit for their work or treated their lives as less valuable than ours. We built our golden age on human charity and called it our achievement. We mistook their kindness for weakness and their contributions for tribute. He looked at the Vrelian representative, who had taken humanity's security directorate seat. We gave positions to species who demanded them rather than species who earned them. We rewarded loud voices over quiet competence. We chose pride over wisdom, and now we're paying the price. Our infrastructure is failing. Our peace is broken. Our progress has stopped. Not because we're under attack, but because we lost the people who held everything together, the people we never bothered to thank. Belthoris gathered his notes. My failure wasn't losing the humans. My failure was never properly valuing them in the first place. I hope my successor learns from my mistakes. I hope the council learns, but I'm not optimistic, because even now, even watching everything fall apart, I hear counselors talking about how to manipulate humans into returning, how to make them need us again. Nobody talks about how to deserve them. He walked toward the chamber doors. We were offered partnership with the most generous species in the galaxy. We chose exploitation instead. That choice has consequences. May we be wise enough to learn from them, though I doubt we will be. The doors closed behind him, and Belthoris left the council he had served for 30 years. On Earth, Cadet Yoon sat in his strategy class studying the reports from council space. The instructor, a veteran named Captain Jin, guided the discussion. The council is collapsing, one student observed. Shouldn't we help them? Why? Yoon asked. Not hostile, just curious. They didn't help us. They used us, Jin nodded slowly. That's one way to see it. Another way. They gave us 20 years of experience across the galaxy. We learned their technology, their languages, their politics. We built relationships with good people trapped in a bad system, and now we're using all of that to build something better. So we should be grateful they exploited us? Another student asked. No, Jin said firmly. We should be grateful we're free of them. There's a difference. The council taught us what not to do. That's valuable knowledge. Yun thought about that. He had been 10 years old when the withdrawal began. He barely remembered the council. His generation had grown up with stories of human dignity, of saying no to those who took advantage of kindness. The reports say individual aliens are reaching out, Yun said. People who were our friends. What do we do about them? We help them, Jin replied. The people who treated us well deserve our friendship. It's not their fault their government was corrupt. Some of them are leaving council space to join our alliance. Some are staying and trying to fix things from inside. Either way, we honor genuine friendship. And the others? Yun asked. The ones who treated us badly? Jin smiled, but it wasn't a kind expression. We let them solve their own problems. They told us for 20 years that our contributions didn't matter. Now they can prove it. In Ambassador Day's office, messages piled up faster than he could read them. Most were from council representatives, offering deals and compromises. He deleted those without reading them. Some were from individual aliens, friends he had made over the years, people who had treated him with genuine respect. Those he read carefully and answered personally. Counselor Hay entered without knocking. They had worked together long enough for formality to be unnecessary. The Thessian government just collapsed, she reported. The plague we could have stopped killed so many that their economy can't recover. They're asking for humanitarian aid. From the council? Day asked. From us, Day considered. The Thessians had always been decent to humans. Not perfect, but respectful. What does the Humanitarian Council recommend? Dr. Bo says she'll go if we authorize it. She points out that we're punishing the council, not ordinary people who need help. Bo's right, Day said. Send medical teams. Make it clear they're acting as independent humanitarian workers, not council representatives. And make sure we charge fair market rates for supplies. We're not running a charity anymore. Hay made notes. The Corellians are asking for engineering assistance. Their power grids are failing. Who's asking? The government or the people? The people. Workers' unions. They remember Engineer Tay. Day nodded. Send Tay if he's willing. Same terms. Independent contractors, fair rates. We help people who respect us, hey? Not governments that exploited us. Over the next months, the pattern continued. Humans returned to council space, but on their own terms. As consultants, not servants. As equals, not subordinates. Species that treated them well received help. Species that demanded help as if it were owed received nothing. The council government sent increasingly desperate messages. Offers of territory, technology sharing, full voting rights, everything they had denied for 20 years. Ambassador Day's response was always the same. Thank you for your interest. Humanity is currently developing our own initiatives and is not seeking council partnership at this time. We wish you success in your future endeavors. Polite. Professional. Absolute. Prime Archon Velthoris, now just Velthoris, read Day's latest rejection in his small apartment on his homeworld. He had returned home after his removal, trying to understand where everything had gone wrong. He pulled up an old recording, one he had saved from that day 23 years ago. The asteroid deflection. In the video, a young human engineer named Sung, who would later build half the council's infrastructure, floated in space, directing a makeshift mining laser. The human ships were barely holding together. The plan was insane. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. Because humans made it work through skill and courage and sheer determination. In the video's background, Ambassador Day could be seen coordinating rescue efforts for the mining teams whose ships had failed. Even then, even while saving an alien world, humans were taking care of each other first. Velthoris finally understood. Humans had never needed the council. They had joined because they wanted to build something beautiful together. The council needed humans desperately, and had been too arrogant to see it. Now the council was learning that lesson. Slowly, painfully, permanently. 20 years had changed everything. Ambassador Day stood at the observation window of the Human Accord headquarters, watching ships from a dozen species dock at the orbital station. He was 73 now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes were still sharp. The Galactic Council still existed, barely. 12 core worlds remained, clinging to the old structure. Everyone else had either joined the Human Accord or formed their own independent alliances. The galaxy had fragmented, and most species agreed it was an improvement. The council sent another application, Counselor Hay said, joining him at the window. She was older too, moving a bit slower, but her mind was as quick as ever. She had built the Human Accord from nothing, and now it was the strongest alliance in the galaxy. Another one? Day asked. That's the 7th this year. They're desperate. The Vrelian Compact just abandoned them. They're down to 11 member worlds now, and most of those are considering leaving too. Day thought about that. The council that had once ruled hundreds of worlds was dying, not through conquest or disaster, but through irrelevance. They had lost the ability to provide value, and nobody wanted to pay for nothing. What are they offering this time? He asked. Everything they own. Full integration into the Accord. They'll dissolve the council government entirely if we'll just accept them as members. And what do they want in return? Hay pulled up the application on her datapad. Humanitarian aid, economic support, engineering assistance, medical services, trade access. Basically, they want us to save them. Day smiled sadly. So they want exactly what they had 20 years ago. Except now they're willing to say please. The question is whether we should help them. Before Day could answer, the conference room filled with the rest of the Accord leadership. Captain Jin, now Admiral, had just returned from a humanitarian mission to the frontier. Dr. Bo had been treating plague victims on 3 different worlds. Engineer Tay was overseeing the construction of a massive solar array that would power an entire sector. Diplomat Sol was fresh from preventing a war between 2 minor species, and there were others. Young faces Day didn't recognize, the next generation who had grown up in the Accord rather than the Council. Cadet Yun, now Commander Yun, led the Military Strategy Division. Trader Na's daughter Ray ran the commercial network that connected 200 worlds. Let's discuss the Council's application, Hai began. We should help them, Dr. Bo said immediately. Whatever our history, people are suffering. That's what matters. People have been suffering for 20 years, Engineer Tay countered. Where was the Council when the frontier colonies needed help? When the Thessians were dying? They only care now because it's happening to them. So we should be like them? Bo challenged. Petty and vindictive. No, Tay replied. We should be realistic. The Council has finite resources to help people. If we waste them on the Council, we're choosing not to help someone else who deserves it more. Commander Yun spoke up. The military analysis suggests accepting the Council would be strategically useful. Their core worlds have resources we need. Their location is valuable for trade routes. Strategy isn't everything, Diplomat Sol said quietly. If we accept them now, what message does that send? That you can exploit humans for decades and we'll still save you when you fail? That seems like inviting more exploitation. We're not the ones who exploited anyone, young Ray pointed out. That was the old council government. Most of those politicians are dead or removed. The people applying now weren't in power back then. But they benefited from that power, Captain Jin said. They lived in comfort while humans did the hard work. They accepted the system that exploited us. Are they blameless just because they weren't the ones giving orders? The room fell silent. It was the heart of the question they had debated for years. How much forgiveness did humanity owe? How much was too much? Ambassador Day had been listening quietly. Now he spoke. I want to tell you about the day I decided to leave the council. We had just saved the Vrelian homeworld from economic collapse, spent 2 years restructuring their entire financial system, teaching them sustainable practices, building infrastructure. It was exhausting work, and when it was done, the Vrelian representative stood in the council chamber and thanked everyone except the humans who actually did the work. He paused, remembering. I wasn't angry. I was just done being invisible, done having our work stolen, done being treated as less than we were. And I realized something important. You can't have a relationship with people who don't respect you. It's not possible. You can have exploitation or you can have respect. Not both. So you're saying we reject them? Hay asked. No, Day said. I'm saying we make them earn it. The council wants to join the accord. Fine, they apply like everyone else. They go through the same process. They meet the same standards. We evaluate whether they're capable of being equal partners, not whether we feel sorry for them. That could take years, Tay said. It took us 20 years to learn we deserved better, Dai replied. They can wait however long it takes to prove they've changed. The vote was unanimous. The council's application would be processed through standard channels. No special treatment. No shortcuts. If they wanted to join the alliance humanity had built, they would earn it like everyone else. Defense Coordinator Wu, now retired but still advising, drafted the response. It was polite, professional, and clear. The Galactic Council's application for associate membership in the Human Accord has been received and will be processed in the order it was received. Current processing time is approximately 7 standard years. During this period, the Council will be evaluated on its ability to contribute meaningfully to the Accord's goals of mutual respect, shared prosperity, and collective security. We wish you success in meeting our standards. The message went out, and across council space the reaction was shock. 7 years? Standards! The council had expected humanity to jump at the chance to help them, just as humans had always jumped before. But humans weren't jumping anymore. On Earth, in a small classroom, an elderly teacher named Bo showed her students a documentary about the council years. The footage showed humans working in alien hospitals, building alien cities, saving alien lives. Always in the background, always uncredited, always essential. Why did they treat us that way? A young student asked. Because we let them, Bo answered. Because we were so eager to prove ourselves worthy that we never demanded they prove themselves worthy of us. We learned better. Hopefully, you won't forget. In the Human Accord Council chamber, Hay finalized the new treaty with the Thessian Republic. The Thessians had left the council 5 years ago, reformed their government, and applied to join the Accord. They had met every standard, waded through the full evaluation process, and proven themselves worthy partners. Welcome to the Accord, Hai said, shaking the Thessian ambassador's hand. Thank you, the ambassador replied. We should have done this 20 years ago. We were fools to let the council tell us humans were inferior partners. You learned, Hay said simply. That's what matters. That evening, Day hosted a small gathering at his home. The core team that had led the withdrawal 2 decades ago, now old and tired but satisfied. They drank human tea and watched the sunset over Earth. Do you think we did the right thing? Saul asked. Leaving when we did? People died because we weren't there. People died when we were there too, Captain Jin replied. We can't save everyone. We can only choose who we try to save. Better to save those who value the effort. The council might never change, Tay added. They might wait 7 years and still fail the evaluation. Then what? Then they fail, Day said. And they live with the consequences of their choices just as we live with ours. We chose dignity. They chose arrogance. Both choices have prices. Some of them did change. Bo pointed out. The Thessians, the Corellians, even some individual Vrelians. Good people exist everywhere. And we help the good people, Hay agreed. That's the lesson. We're not abandoning compassion. We're just being selective about where we direct it. We help those who would help us in return. As the sun set, Day thought about all the humans across the galaxy. Doctors treating patients who respected their skills. Engineers building projects they were credited for. Diplomats negotiating as equals. Merchants trading fairly. Scientists collaborating freely. Humanity hadn't withdrawn from the galaxy. They had withdrawn from exploitation, and in doing so, they had built something better than the Council ever was. The doorbell rang. A courier delivered a message from the Council. Dee read it while his old friends watched. They're asking us to expedite their application, he said. They say it's an emergency. Everything is an emergency to them now, Hay observed. Day composed a brief reply. All applications are processed in order. No exceptions. Thank you for your patience. He sent it and returned to his friends. Outside, the galaxy turned, full of species learning to treat each other with respect. Some had learned that lesson early and prospered. Others were still learning the hard way. The Council was learning slowest of all. But they were learning, and humanity? Humanity was teaching the galaxy a simple truth. Kindness freely given is a gift. Kindness taken for granted will eventually be taken away, and once it's gone, you can't demand it back. You can only hope to earn it again.